Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and films. For this episode, crank your 80s pop and give your shirt a quick crop, because this definitely wasn't a flop about some flyboys on a flat top. That's right, we're talking Top Gun. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Hello there.
And Joel Killingsworth.
General Kenobi.
Oh! That was not coordinated unless they texted each other.
We did not.
I wasn't watching.
And that was the Star Wars reference of the episode.
Yep, there we go. So we're done.
Quota,
We've met
quota.
quota.
Has been met.
Don't have to do it anymore.
It's okay. Nothing here compares disfavorably to Star Wars. So,
I'm not sure what that meant.
I'm
which
not
direction
sure either.
that
I don't know which way that's supposed to go, actually. Moving forward. Top Gun Maverick is
soon
on the horizon. I realized I didn't know how we were going to drop these. I've just determined how these episodes are going to be released.
Well, I mean, so Top Gun is going to release the same day as Maverick. So when you're hearing this, it's already out.
But when will soon be?
Memorial Day.
Then. Anyways.
So after, or basically when you were listening to this.
Wait a minute. You mean this isn't live?
No.
This is recorded in the past?
When will then be now?
Yes.
Y'all are killing me.
Okay. All right. Well, there we
yes,
go.
But it will be past Memorial Day.
Today, which is not today, I learned.
Top Gun Maverick will be out by the time you listen to this.
Right.
But we would have seen it, but we are not going to say anything because we actually haven't seen it yet.
But we will have seen it.
This is getting really meta. Y'all both need to stop.
When you listen to this episode, we will have knowledge you don't have, but which we don't have currently at the time that we're recording this episode that you will be listening to. So the us that is talking to you has less knowledge than the us that will be at the time that you listen to us.
That is correct.
My head hurts. Can I go home now? But yes, so Top Gun Maverick is finally going to be released sometime soon, if not already.
After being delayed for multiple times.
And then moved up after being delayed.
Yeah, it was
pushed forward. Whatever. Anyways, that happened. So on that note, we decided to go back to 1986.
Correct.
And take a look at Top Gun.
Yep. A true aviation action classic.
Yes, it is.
All of those words do apply.
A pinnacle of 80s film.
And
not from a critical perspective, though.
We're going to get there, but that is not the time for this.
Well, I'm not referring to our critical review. I'm referring to just the consensus critical review wasn't great in 1986. The audience reaction, though, was phenomenal.
It was totally different. Yeah.
Very high, yes. But before we jump into Top Gun, we figured we would have a little chat about, we're going to call this Top Gun by another name. So basically, other pieces of media, be it film, show, book, that is very similar to Top Gun. So the parts we like, the aerial combat.
Well, aerial combat, cocky pilots,
radical action.
Yeah,
I'm setting you up for that one.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like aerial dog fighting is but with jets.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, or jet equivalent is kind of where we're going, because there are some choices for this that are not specifically jets.
Yeah. On that note, Andrew, you go first.
Sure. So, okay, it's been a really, really long time since I've seen this. I don't have the best synopsis, so I'm just going to kind of like read one.
Okay.
I chose SWAT Cats, the Radical Squadron of One Jet.
So when did this come out?
1993.
93.
It's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and clearly they took the main jet that they fly in the show, and they modeled it after an F-14.
Mm-hmm.
But it has 3 engines. It's black. It's orange. Has some tiger stripes on it, and it is flown by 2 anthropomorphic cats. That is Razor and T-Bone.
Oh, all right.
Razor is the Rio, so he is the radar interface operator.
Intercept
officer. There it is. And then you have T-Bone, who is the pilot. And they basically just fight crime in a jet.
Okay.
but it's like supernatural
Yeah.
kind of thing. So like they're in the Mega Cat City, which is just New York.
Mm-hmm.
And they...
Made out of anthropomorphic characters.
Correct.
Yeah.
Everybody's cat.
And this is actually a multiverse. So there's a parallel dimension that has basically the bizarro version of all of them.
Okay.
The dark cat.
Yeah, the Dark Cat. And they come over into Mega Cat City, the normal universe, and they all have to fight. And basically everything in the show can be solved by flying a jet.
Really fast and looking really cool while doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fingerless gloves are an important accessory.
They really are.
They really are.
I mean, it was just like the quintessential 90s, like bombastic cartoon that kind of comes out. Like the opening theme is just like, heavy shredding on guitars.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's just exactly what you would expect out of something that was based essentially off of Top Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much imagine if you had Batman's gallery of rogues and villains, except you fought them with a jet. That's basically the show. And it also has a motorcycle that drops out of the jet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I love dropping in a motorcycle onto hard concrete going Mach 3.
I mean, when you're fighting a wizard, you got to make things happen, or Godzilla.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think HBO has the Hanna-Barbera library, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right. It's either HBO or Hulu.
While you
think
guys
it's
do
HBO.
something, I'll check to see if there's actually a spot that you can watch SWAT Cats if you've never seen it.
Yeah, I remember watching it when it was, on TV, when it was first released. Oh no, that was a long time ago.
I mean, I
and
remember it when it was first
it was
released.
so
Yeah.
cool, especially as someone who was obsessed with F-14.
Oh, yeah. And you get 2 seasons, so there's it's like 26 total episodes, and then it got canceled
Mhm.
for various reasons or whatever. Unfortunately, I don't think there was a lot of toys for it.
Mhm.
I don't remember any toys.
I believe there was maybe one of the Turbo Cat.
Yeah,
but
there's probably one of the jet, and that was
Yeah.
I mean, if it had a successful merchandising line, it probably wouldn't have gotten
It wouldn't
canceled.
have gotten canceled.
Yeah.
That's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so you guys pick it up. I'll figure it out.
I'm going to pick it up next because I
All right.
can't remember what Joel's option was. I'm just going to go for it. So I'm going to throw down a little slice of the. Oh, you know what? Y'all said Star Wars quota achieved, and you were wrong because I'm talking extended universe Star Wars, the X-Wing series of books.
It's Legends now,
oh,
Steven.
whatever. Shut up, Disney. But this follows Rogue Squadron, led by Wedge Antilles and several other characters who, if you have ever played the miniatures games, names you'll be familiar with, and also slightly disappointed about the fact that they were not in X-Wings. People like Corran Horn and Tycho. And also a little later in the series, you get Wes Jansen and Derek Hobby, who people may or may not remember for their half-a-second appearances in Empire Strikes Back during the Defense of Hoth.
Hobby actually makes an appearance in a Rebels episode.
Oh, that's cool.
He does, and so does Wedge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got a little bit back, but it's not this version of it.
No.
But if your interest in Star Wars was not Jedis and lightsabers, but instead fighters fighting in space, this is a pretty great option. I'm not going to tell you it is, again, Legends or extended universe writing. It's not the most fantastically well done. But if you like dogfighting, it's pretty cool. And it's got some pretty good, egotistical fighter jock moments. It also, as you get later in the series, you hit another squadron that is essentially just Wedge as a long-suffering DM, while these RPG players are just ruining his carefully established story by doing whatever they feel like within this squadron.
But does it have a beach volleyball scene?
It does not. It does eventually have I don't want to spoil much, but there is a long-running gag that culminates in Wedge having to fly with an Ewok puppet in his lap in one of the mother of all space battles in order to fulfill a specific role.
I mean, that's a certain level of hazing that just kind of exists.
Yeah, no, it's just one of these
amongst
things
pilots.
that builds up over time. It's war. Like there's a lot of downtime, and there's a lot of time just where practical jokes are a thing.
Yeah.
And it's He has the moment where he keeps encountering the stupid thing. He's just sighs. He's like, at least morale is high. But yeah, I mean, there's like 12 books.
Yeah, I was going to say there's quite a lot.
There's a lot of books, and they're pretty fun, pretty good read. So yeah, throw that out there. If you are like us, a player of X-Wing the Miniatures game, and you haven't read these books somehow, you should. So yeah.
So before Joel gets to go, unfortunately, there is no streaming service that you can get it for the subscription price.
Okay.
So if you wanted to watch it for SWAT Cats, the Radical Squadron of
Radical.
Unfortunately, you'd have to purchase the entire, like basically each season of the show for $20
Wow.
off of Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly it has not. Yeah, it hasn't been picked up yet. There may be, if you have like a Boomerang TV subscription, they may do reruns of it there.
They have a lot of they have Hanna-Barbera. And at one point there was an attempt to revive it, to reboot it.
There was,
and I don't think that succeeded in any role.
As far as I know, it was not successful.
Yeah, I have many friends for whom this is nostalgia, but I don't know if I have enough friends to push that through.
Yeah,
Joel,
right. Continue.
All right, so I'm gonna pitch this at you in general terms first, right? Okay. So, hotshot young pilot whose father was lost in battle, also a pilot, and is generally disgraced.
Top Gun,
and who is searching for answers about their father to find out the truth about what happened.
Top Gun.
At the same time, training in a group of gifted pilots where they are not the best. The best is a straight-laced, by-the-book, flies like a machine, alpha male type.
Top Gun.
No, this is not, in fact, Top Gun. This is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novel. It is a YA female protagonist, and it is set in a sci-fi universe where humanity has been brought to the brink of extinction, and they are hiding out on this planet that is surrounded by just a complete haze of floating debris that's in orbit that creates kind of a shifting shell around the planet. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Periodically there are debris falls, and so living on the surface is dangerous. So they mostly live in subterranean caverns. In addition to that, whenever there is a gap in the debris field, alien forces mount a sortie to come and eradicate the humans. And so their only line of defense is their highly specialized Air Force utilizing stolen technology from the aliens to create essentially omnidirectional jet fighters.
So I'm not going to lie. When you initially mentioned that this is what you were going to use in the pre-show prep, you didn't drop the author's name.
Yeah.
And I am more interested now that you have provided that information.
On a scale of Mistborn to Stormlight Archives, where does this range?
In terms of what?
Complexity.
Below Mistborn.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So it's not
no, this is actual YA, like actually targeted at YA.
Ooh.
Mistborn is not. Mistborn is an adult reading level.
Oh, cool. Well, then I'm totally going to read this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if it was like Stormlight, I'd just not do it. But
no.
Yeah.
No, Stormlight is the most complex stuff that he's written. So like nothing is up there.
100% it is.
I really want to pick up Stormlight just so I can read. Like, what's wrong with Andrew? This is easy.
I mean, it will probably be easy for you. But okay, so anyways, Skyward?
Skyward.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome because that sounds exactly like Top Gun.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, so I had not seen Top Gun before doing research for this show, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I sat there watching Top Gun and I'm like, this is Skyward. This is the plot of Skyward. Brandon Sanderson, what did you do?
Well, when you crank out so many books, at some point, what is it? Good artists imitate, great artists steal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, well, because Brandon Sanderson didn't start writing books until like late 90s.
Somewhere around there. His first published work was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, so he definitely...
And he was writing for about 10 years before he got his first book published.
Yeah. Yeah, so he definitely was around the time when Top Gun came out initially.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he was probably around the age where it was very influential.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine
in his.
Are you just telling me that he's my age? that what you're saying?
He's probably a little bit older than you, but yeah, pretty much.
Okay, all right. Well, now these things are online.
I really hope that he is older than me, because every time someone brings up someone, I'm like, oh yeah, they're like 5 years young. Oh, they've done so much with their lives.
Every time I think about music artists that are like 20, and I'm like, wow, they have more money than I'll ever have.
Well, and that's one of those things that really gets me, because when you see like a sports star, it's like, well, I'm never going to be 6'9". It's just not happening. And then you see a musician, and it's like, if I had actually dedicated myself, there's no physical limitation to can I play the guitar or piano, legitimately.
So Sanderson was born in 1975.
I'm safe.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he was like
wheelhouse.
Yeah, he was like
out.
11 years old when this came out.
Yeah.
This is exactly the type of story that he would go for.
Perhaps we do not personally know the man.
I mean,
he wrote a book about
it.
I feel pretty confident going out on this limb. It's not a slim limb. On that note,
we should give a bad synopsis.
I think I already did, actually.
So you have to do it again.
I have to do it again. All right. So young hotshot pilot whose father, who was also a pilot, died in action and was disgraced. And so they have a chip on their shoulder about that. No, so we come in with a kind of a cold open with a jet fighters having a tense encounter with a unnamed enemy force fighter group.
MiGs. Just MiGs.
And where we have the not main character pilot freeze up due to some undisclosed previous trauma. And they can't execute, like they get really rattled by the encounter and can't really continue to function. And we have our hero defy orders in order to help them bring their plane in and avoid catastrophe in that situation. And due to that pilot deciding to turn in their wings because they are no longer fit to fly, our hero and his RIO, which stands for, you said it,
Radar Intercept Officer.
There we go. These
or operator, either one is fine.
This team of two, one of those is correct and the other is not.
Now I'm gonna look this up again.
Well, he's still an officer, so like
he's an officer and he's an operator, but one of those is correct.
He's a RIO.
The other is not. Anyway, so this second runner-up team of two now gets picked because the first place dude on this ship has just retired, essentially. And they get picked to be sent to a school for the best of the best in jet fighter pilots to teach them the lost art of dogfighting.
Not really the lost art. It's really, okay, so Top Gun is essentially a graduate program for Navy pilots.
It was established to teach pilots the lost art of dogfighting. They actually cover that in the movie.
Those are the words I said.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed those words.
But anyway, so like the rest of the movie is centered around the training and the relationships that are developed there and the situations that arise, and really cool hijinks ensue.
So I just like to say that looking up this term also made me feel better about myself. So one, it is Radar Intercept Officer is what RIO stands for. However, at the start of the movie, when Lauren asked me, I actually referred to him as a WSO or WISO, which is Weapon System Officer, which is modern,
also the same
the
thing.
modern term.
Yeah.
RIO is the old term. And they said RIO, and I was like, man, am I out of touch?
No, it's the children that are wrong.
Yeah, WSO is also.
And that actually kind of messed with me for a minute. I just didn't think to go back and look it up. So anyways. Moving forward, we've got our synopsis out of the way. It's time to talk about a couple of scores.
All right. So we have our scores split up between a technical rating and a entertainment value. And for our technical rating, that is averaged out between our 4 pillars of review, that being spectacle, performance, score, and plot. And for the technical rating, we have given this film a 6.3 out of 10.
That's not great.
It's kind of low.
Yeah.
Little
it's not the worst that we've handed out. Very far from the best.
It is definitely not the lowest.
No. It falls short of the No Way Home threshold.
I mean, okay, so there are some problems with this film, but which we will go into in great detail.
Yes.
Yeah,
later.
there are problems with it that exist because of the era, and there are also problems with it that as soon as this movie was created, they just weren't good.
Yeah, most of them come from just being generally inaccurate with one, how the Navy works, and then two,
It's just not internally consistent with itself. Honestly.
Yeah, the dogfighting looks very cool for the time.
Mm-hmm.
However, is not.
I disagree with you all on that one, and we'll get into it.
I didn't even say what my point was.
Well, I don't care. I disagree with you.
No matter what it is. But so we have the entertainment value separated out, because even if something is not technically sound, it can still be really enjoyable. And in this case, that was not the case. And we found our entertainment value score to be 7 out of 10. So
that's
slightly better.
That's higher
Slightly
than the
better.
I feel that is completely false based on what I gave it. So you guys must have hated it.
Hated it as strong.
Disliked it greatly.
It's fine. It's fine, and that's as far as I'm willing to go.
Okay, so the movie
Yes.
Came out in 1986.
Yes.
And there's like, without getting into any specific details, I mean, if you haven't seen Top Gun, well, actually, it's not actually unheard of that you haven't seen Top Gun, because Joel hadn't seen Top
I hadn't
Gun
seen Top Gun
before this. So I can't say that it is unlikely that you will be spoiled from this film, because you definitely could be.
Could be. In
Yeah.
fact, if you go watch the trailer for Top Gun Maverick, you will 100% be spoiled for this film.
You have a general idea. Well, especially if you watch the new one, where they reveal some things that happen in this one.
Yeah.
But basically, there's an unfortunate just product of the times is, if there are two opposite sex characters in a film, they have to fall in love, and the love story is not good.
No.
It is almost 100% irrelevant to the story. It's
Yes.
just, if it didn't exist, the movie would still just be awesome aerial combat with hotshot fighter jocks, and we'd be fine.
And like the whole fighter jock culture part of the film,
Mhm.
regardless of any sort of accuracy to military life whatsoever, is like the embodiment of cool, right?
For the 80s,
for the 80s,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're very much so. They're all, the alpha male jocks. Gotta prove who's best. Gotta have my ego, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I mean, to be fair, these are the best of the best in aviator.
The movie makes it very clear that Maverick isn't even the best in his own squadron on one carrier.
Well, I mean, like, you're still,
I know.
You're still like one of the better pilots.
Yeah, just being a pilot for a fighter jet in an armed forces is you're already very high up in percentages.
Yeah, well, and you have to have a certain type of personality to fly these things in a combat ready capacity.
Yes.
And that personality is probably going to be an alpha male.
Well, it's also kind of one of those, it's kind of the pinnacle of skill, and generally speaking, the further up the skill pyramid you go, the more ego comes into play, right?
Yeah.
Because when you've always been, the best football player in school, you might be hard to deal with for some people, right? It's the same culture with
just with jet fighters.
At least the 80s fighter jock mentality or whatever that's here. So it's just kind of hard to avoid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It's also a purely men's boys club. So that breeds its own.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely parts of this film that would not track well in today's environment for filmmaking.
And a lot of those have to do with the romance subplot.
The incessant,
romance is a very strong word to use for this.
the incessant
I don't know,
harassment, of female,
bird dogging.
Yeah.
We definitely, he takes very much so a 50 no's and 1 yes is still a yes approach, which is a little weird to
not
watch.
Good.
Yeah.
Which is, it's definitely one of those things where, in the 80s that may have passed, but the further you get away from that time period, it is not really kosher anymore.
No. We've harped on that enough. So what if we also bring up the fact that it was almost entirely a military propaganda movie? Woohoo!
Well, it was a Navy recruitment film, and by the time that they realized that it was a Navy recruitment film, they had Navy recruitment booths in the theaters while it was still
waiting for you to come out.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, it actually worked. Whenever the film, or after the film released, they noticed
recruitment spiked
500% increase in naval aviator candidates.
Yes. I thought, the budget for this, right? It's only $15 million.
And I think they paid the U.S. Navy, I think like $4 or $5 million for the time with the jets.
I mean, they basically, and a lot of these shots really are probably just written off as training hours with actual, naval aviators.
Yeah.
So they saved a lot of money basically by kind of appealing to the Navy. And it's kind of interesting to watch as the movie progresses. It feels kind of like the time that they had with the jets and the pilots kind of fell off because the initial scenes are very lovingly shot, and it kind of collapses after a while.
Once they get to about a little bit past halfway in the film, a lot of the footage feels very similar to the last shot you just saw.
Yeah. Once they get out to Miramar, to Top Gun. But I mean, so for me, right? I'm a kid at the time that I first saw this, because that's kind of how it works. Not an adult like Joel.
I'm an adult.
You're an adult. The sequences, I probably saw this early 90s when I first saw it, because I'm 83, so I was a little too young to see it in the theaters. The aerial combat sequences were pretty amazing.
They're still some of the best. Cool.
The first aerial encounter is so well shot. It's ridiculous how good, especially given for the technology time, how large these cameras had to be, and they just strapped them wherever they could. So they actually appealed. I don't know if they went to Northrop Grumman or Northrop Grumman just did it, but they built a specialized mount for the A6 Intruder that would hold 4 cameras.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
So that they could do the flight photography with basically another Navy jet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like at this point, in the 80s, technology is so much larger than what it is now, where they can basically compact full HD 4K IMAX quality kind of footage into, something that can fit in your hand. Maybe not for IMAX, but you know what I mean. And, back then everything's film. There's no digital at all.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to put a camera on the outside of this highly tuned weapon of war,
that's going, 700 miles an hour.
Yeah, you didn't just slap an SD card in that thing. It had to have film reels attached to it to get the footage. Yeah. And if you wanted to reload the film, you had to land the plane.
Yep.
And then take it back off.
And that is a lot of fuel.
That is a lot of fuel.
Yeah. So Joel, what are your general thoughts of the film?
Especially as someone who has only seen it for this purpose.
Right. So the coolness factor is like what it's trading on the entire time. And to that extent, it generally succeeds, right? So you've got the jet fighters that are just cool. And you've got these guys strutting around. They're like, I'm the best, and they're just like, I'm going to beat you at being the best. And
they all have cool names, right? You got Maverick, Slider,
the call signs,
Iceman,
the call signs just dial the cool factor up to 11, right? Like we're too cool for human names. We're using made up names that sound cool.
And everyone's even the instructors are rocking, Jester and Viper.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like that whole culture, whether fictitious or not, is a fun ride to visit.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't live there. Just visit.
Just look in the window for a minute. Yeah.
Well, there's a line in the movie where Maverick, the main character, introduces himself as Maverick to a girl, and she's like, "What? Did your mom hate you?"
Yeah. And of course, he pivots to that and be like, "No, I'm one of the coolest people in the entire world. I fly jets.
I'm a naval aviator."
Yeah.
Trying to impress.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of those films where I would not be wearing, or I would not have a pair of Ray-Ban aviators if I had not seen this movie.
Yeah.
Like it is the epitome of rule of cool in the form of jets and hotshot pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of where that kind of that moniker generally comes from too, is, like you have like the really cocky attitude and the guy that, he just flies by the seat of his pants. That's kind of where this comes from.
Yeah, it does amuse me though that our quote unquote villain or antagonist is someone who flies by the rules. It's still such a weird thing to see flick, because when you're a kid and you watch this, that doesn't hit, right?
Yeah,
and then
you're like, oh, Iceman, I don't like him.
Yeah, and then it hits as an adult, and you're like, wait, why are we supposed to not like this guy?
Yeah,
he's just trying to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Hey, Maverick, we're about to head out on our final hop, and if spoilers are too close to the danger zone for you, it may be best you sit this one out and study up on spoilersintendedpodcast.com. A great resource for all of our episodes, Patreon, and Discord content. If you are feeling ready, push that throttle forward, because I'm feeling the need for speed.
Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. Hope you had a quick little intermission there. In case you didn't get the message, it is all spoilers all the time, all the way down to the Indian Ocean. On that note, it's time to talk about a little spectacle.
Yeah.
I'll let Joel go first.
All right. So spectacle, we're talking about that wow factor, the visual effects, the thematic elements at play that just make you go, that's an experience.
I'm curious about where you landed on this.
Well, I gave it a 7. I gave it a 7 out of 10, because like we've been talking about, the subject matter is just, it's really impressive subject matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking jets. We're talking impressive, ego-driven, pilots and all of the trappings that surround that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really great setting to have a high spectacle production.
Yeah. High octane.
Yeah. And I think there are a couple of problems that really detract from the potential that could have been reached.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being the kind of sparsity of aerial combat footage in the latter half of the film that we talked about.
Yeah.
And there are a number of potential issues that lead into that reality, whether it be ran out of flight time with the cameras or and then for sure, they're in a time mid-80s where they don't have the technology to supplement, right?
Yeah.
If they're gonna have footage, it's because they were in the air and they got that footage.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those where if they, had stuff storyboarded out and then, the day didn't go as long as they wanted it to, for whatever reason, the Navy needed to reacquisition the planes for something, they're just stuck with whatever footage they have and they got to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is kind of couched within the Cold War scare, and, surprise, this was shot in 1985. The Cold War was still going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And ignoring the fact that you're out in, I don't actually know where they filmed with the Enterprise, what ocean, but wherever they were,
not the Indian Ocean.
I don't think it was, but wherever they were, you're not guaranteed that you have nice weather today or tomorrow or the next week or whatever. You can't fix that problem, and you're only out there for so long. So
yeah, and you definitely don't fly these jets in anything but very nice weather.
Not for this purpose, no. Also, it would be a little weird to be like, it's a clear sky, we're having a dogfight. No, it's a storm.
Yeah. But anyway, so the footage issues for at least the latter half of the film contribute to some of the more important action sequences being difficult to follow.
Right.
And so that's where it kind of hits the most in this category for me.
Okay.
One of my favorite, this is just a general knock, is in the final fight in the Indian Ocean somewhere, and Iceman is isolated while Maverick is flying towards him, And we get this shot of he's like, oh, they're all over me. And there's, like the F-14, and then there's a whole bunch of MiG-28s, which is actually an F-5. There is no MiG-28, doesn't exist. All these, like, they're basically all doing like aileron rolls.
Yeah.
Aerial acrobatics around
him.
Off.
And they show the footage twice.
They do.
Yeah, they were very proud of that maneuver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're weighing in. Let's hear a score.
So I also gave it a 7.
Mhm.
Okay.
It was, it's definitely, so Tony Scott directed the film, and there's actually some really fantastic shots of whenever Maverick is on the ground, one riding his motorcycle down the runway, which is totally something you could never do.
Mhm.
But he does, you do get the F-14 taking off in the background.
Yeah.
At sunset. Beautiful shot. Then basically all the shots when they're on the aircraft carrier of them actually on the aircraft carrier, of shooting down the line of all the F-14s, all of the crew that are actual naval
flight deck crew working. Yeah.
Those are not actors; those are just normal military guys, just doing their job. And like in those kind of shots, especially at the beginning of the film, whenever like they're getting ready for the jets to launch, is just so cool, because you really get a kind of a taste of how everything kind of works. And there's so many like little bits and pieces in there that, being a kid, you're just like, oh yeah, this is so, like, and then I want to be that guy that's like, sitting down, calling him out. And then he like leans his head down as the jet flies over him, those kind of things.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great. The opening sequence is probably like, it's hard because the opening sequence is probably the best part of the movie. Like they just immediately give you just this awesome taste of,
well, especially once it takes off of the carrier and it has the camera attached to the jet, like leaving the carrier, and you can see
it's
like,
on the tail, basically, on like where the tail hook would be.
But so yeah, kind of like what you guys said, like towards the end of the film, they reuse a lot of footage, and a lot of the footage is them. They probably only did, they probably only had 1 or 2 full shoots with the MiG-28s available to them, and they basically just had whatever footage they had, and they had to turn it into
2 fights.
Fights, basically.
There was an awful lot of close up of one fighter firing a weapon, and then close up of the target fighter, and then just a missile shooting off into the air, completely separate shot. Like
yeah, and it's. Yeah, well, when you start getting into dummy firing missiles and stuff like that, like you can't, with the technology that they had, that you can't really like fake that. So you have to just shoot it off into the distance, and then here's a model of the plane for a split second as it blows up.
Yeah,
yeah. All the explosions and the flat spins were done with models.
Yeah,
they weren't. The Navy was like, look, guys, we like you. We're not deliberately putting my F-14 into a flat spin and then recovering it.
This F-14 costs more than your movie.
Yes.
One of them. But yeah, I mean, like the rest of it, it was actually shot pretty well. Like it was shot very competently, and whatever they were doing on the ground was actually pretty good. I despite the complete inaccuracy of everyone sweating in a comm room of an aircraft carrier.
Everyone is so moist.
I love
spritzed.
Yeah. Well, I swear they had an intern that just had a spray bottle. Like, before every scene.
And cut. All right, action.
But all of the lights and everything kind of giving like the blue and red hue over everyone. I think those are really cool.
The lighting
shots.
was really cool in the control room.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to buck the trend. I actually thought I was being harsh. I gave Spectacle an 8.
So I initially had it at an 8.
Okay.
And then I thought about it and I was like, the doubling up on footage does kind of bother me.
It was really tough because especially the start, like the initial carrier operation shot is probably just some of the best just fighter jets in operation footage that exists, just period.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you don't get like this like movie quality level of viewing of just like people doing their job.
Yeah, and it's really small and tight snapshots of the individual roles involved in the actual launch or recovery of a fighter and like everything that goes into it. And they're doing this constantly, day in, day out, night and day. And it's just, you get the music over top of it and this gorgeous views. And then the jet takes off and you're like right there with it with the camera, which again, as a kid, that's one of the first moments where you're really just, riding up into the skies with it. And there are so many shots, especially early on, where they really sold out. They had the cameras, on the undersides of the planes, and they did a lot with it. Also working with, the time of day.
Yeah.
And later in the film, right, we get into the whole reused footage. They reuse the whole bunch of the planes in the air.
Yeah,
which
doing
is weird.
Just aerobatics around.
They reuse the flybys where they have the initial head-to-head in the combat, and they call out 3 MiGs.
Yep.
And they do another flyby, and it's 2 MiGs in a head-to-head, but it's still 3 MiGs shooting by. So it's just Maverick's either an idiot or, they just reuse the footage.
The other thing is too, and this is more of just a general observation, is aerial combat, especially with jets, is never this close. Okay, it can be close. It is not close enough for you to get 5 MiGs and a F-14 in the same shot at the same time.
That is totally accurate. I actually will have a counterpoint for your first thing later because it's something I wanted to bash on. Then when I thought of it, I was like, no, okay, that's actually wrong. But we'll get into that later. That's a plot relevant point, not a spectacle. Because for the actual cinematography, you need to jam as many of these planes in the frame as you
possibly can,
and they need to be doing as many cool things as they can. Just go ahead and, what do you want me to do? I'm just flying late. Roll the thing. Come on, man. Give them a show.
Well, as a kid, 10, 11-year-old kid, you're like, oh, this is so cool. Like they're doing all the barrel rolls and everything. And then like, as you get older and have even any kind of general concept of like fighting in planes, none of this would work.
Yeah.
The one that gets me is when Maverick takes off to go, rescue Iceman at the end. And he does a roll coming off the carrier. And holy crap, what a showcase of how much power the engines were putting out to just be able to just do that in real life. Like there's no faking this. This happened.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, what a stupid moment for the plot of the movie. You need to get out there and stop showing off, you idiot. Plot point. But, as a kid, that's so cool. As an adult, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to think about it from the logistics in his mind of like, I'm going to do a roll when I get off of this.
Give him a show. Let him know I'm in charge here.
As my wingman is being hounded on by, 6 MiGs.
I mean, he doesn't really like the guy, right?
Yeah, but
still gotta
they're still on the same team.
Gotta do a job. They were on the same team in volleyball. That's just like jet fighters.
True, yeah.
Yeah, well, he lost his team, so he has to find a new team.
Oh, that's sad.
But seriously, though, why is everyone so moist?
I mean, it makes sense when they're on the volleyball court.
That's the only time that the spritzer made sense.
Yeah, I mean, well, even when they're, they just took showers, but like, their towels are really not doing anything because they're just dripping wet.
Damp. in a very non-humid environment. Y'all are damp. Anyways, on that note, time to jump forward into the performance. Let's see. Joel went first.
It was a very damp performance.
Andrew?
I'll go. I give it a 7.
Okay.
I honestly thought that Tom Cruise's performance was actually really good. I thought he after Goose dies, he has a very good emotional section of the film, and culminating in the he tries to get back up in the jet and he doesn't engage, and then he gets back down, and Sundown is just hounding him, and he just turns around, and just grabs him, and I will not repeat the line because it has some curse words in it.
Yeah.
As you do.
But that, it culminates in just this climactic moment for him of just like, you know what, I'm going to do it whenever I'm ready. And it is just it's probably one of his better, earlier performances, I think, compared to something like Risky Business I love Risky Business. It's a great film, but it's also not one of his better.
Speaking of this being an early performance for Tom Cruise, it was so distracting just looking at how ridiculously young he is
Right?
in this film. It's like, this is a child. Why are you showing me a child?
Well, because he's, you know, like all of these fighter pilots are meant to be, you know, in their mid-20s,
Yeah.
essentially, you know, because
I'm not sure he was that old.
He
Was
was,
he?
Yeah.
I'm looking.
He's looking, but I'm pretty sure he was like 25,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. So he's pretty much right around the age of where he needs to be for that. Because he was 21 in Risky Business.
So Cruise was born in 1962. So filming this, he's 23.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So he's maybe a little young, but not unbelievably so.
Mm-hmm.
He just looks young, just in general.
Because like I would, if they said that he was 19 in that film, I would have believed it.
Well, and that's
I
the thing. He
believe that for
wouldn't.
most films he's been in. Yeah.
If they said he was if he was actually, if they for whatever reason stated his age in there, if he was anything younger than 25,
I mean, for the plot, it wouldn't have made sense. But I'm just saying for his appearance.
he just wouldn't have had the experience to be
Yeah.
a fighter pilot to be in Top Gun, basically.
Anyways, less Cruise, more other people.
I actually really like Kelly McGillis. I thought she did a good job. Unfortunately, given the role that she was, which is just to be a romantic.
Time to throw away my job for this hotshot pilot.
Yeah. But like what she was given, she actually did a really good job. And I also thought Anthony Edwards, Goose, was fantastic.
He and Cruise's chemistry as we're a team
but
was really good.
Well, and you can tell that they had quotation marks a lot of history in character,
right?
Where you know, like they could finish each other's sentences. Goose knew exactly what Maverick was going to do.
Yep.
At any given time, whether it was good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
and just had to deal with whatever it was.
Yeah.
Joel?
All right. Well, I'm going to upset the charts here, and I'm going to also give it a 7.
Oh.
But I'm going to take a little bit different tack on it. I thought that, the movie hinges on Cruise's performance because it's all about Maverick. Like he's not only is he the protagonist, there basically isn't another character that has an arc. Like it's just all him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the parts where he is playing the cocky hotshot pilot, I thought that he just nailed it. It was great. There are, when he is asked to emote angrily in response to the trauma of losing Goose in a tragic accident, he does that well. But there were scenes where he is supposed to be more quietly remorseful.
Yeah. That
just fell flat for me.
Okay.
So like 85% of what he did was really great, and the rest of it was just kind of eh. And then
I mean, that's totally fine.
Yeah. And then like for the whole supporting cast, they performed adequately, but they were basically given nothing to work with.
Yes.
Especially anyone that wasn't Kelly McGillis or Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
There was no other, I mean, like Tom Skerritt, he's a good actor, but he just kind of plays the same guy.
Val Kilmer, right? Playing Iceman. It's like, this is the quote unquote antagonist for the piece. Like, give him some characterization or something. Like,
yeah, he was just, he's
the
by the
perfect
rules.
pilot.
Yeah. He's like, Iceman.
That's all you needed. That one sentence. We're good.
Yeah,
no more personality. He didn't get more personality than that. That's all the personality anybody needs.
All right. So Andrew gave it a 7. Joel gave it a 7. I have come to upset the consensus by also giving it a 7.
Oh, we're very upset.
Yeah, y'all should be. So yeah, I mean, Cruise is Cruise. I really liked the chemistry with him and Edwards. Their interactions felt very natural. Like you said, it felt like they had, as characters, a lot of history together.
Like true history, that they've been together since flight school.
Yeah,
they just never, they're joined at the hip.
Yeah, they reference certain incidents and, happenings and why you got to do this again. And, eat from the bar, right? Well, I think she's lost that love and feeling. No, man, come on, But then he commits, right? Because he's not the wingman, but he is, the partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all kind of touched on this already. Tom Skerritt, Michael Ironside, and James Tolkien. So that is Viper, Jester, and Stinger, respectively. They all are playing the same roles that they've always played. They're,
except
grizzled,
this time with cool fake names.
with cool things, yeah. But just the things that are happening around them, and they're just the grizzled, pilots and commanders and these kinds of things. They're just there to be the boss, right? They fulfill their role well. McGillis, she got basically nothing. I think probably of all the performances, hers is the best because she was given the least and she made the most of that.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate whenever I watch these older films and you know that the only reason why they have a female character in the film is just so she could be a romantic interest.
Yeah.
And it's just like, come on, like you guys can do so much more than this.
Their initial interaction in the bar is good just because if you know what's coming, where she's the civilian
the civilian
trainer
contractor or whatever
that's going to show up, and she has some level of authority,
mm-hmm.
And he's just making it totally.
And then she just throws it away, and it's just like
but like she walks up to the front of the class, and Cruz immediately puts his aviators on and he looks away, and like Goose leans and he's like, yo, that's like the girl. That moment is hilarious and would have been perfect if there had been something more interesting to develop off of it.
Yeah, or why are they giving a briefing in the middle of an airplane hangar?
I'm not here to question that one. I don't know. They at least have more traditional like classroom settings later.
They do.
Yeah. But someone did have to carry all those desks out there. But yeah, that's basically just, it's worthy of a 7. And
yeah,
I just don't know that anyone ever really rose up. And if I think what Joel was saying, if Cruz had really nailed the quiet melancholy moments, all of our scores probably would have gone up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it probably would have at least pushed it to an 8.
Yeah. So speaking of scores, it's time to move on and talk about the score.
I want you to start since you're the oldest.
You want me to start because I'm the oldest? Okay.
You have the most amount of surface area into true 80s music.
Surface area.
Surface area.
Surface area of time. We are going to integrate your life.
Oh wow! All right, Joel, calm down. All right. So as we've already stated, I have the longest foothold.
Wait, the largest
80s.
surface area. Did you just call him fat?
I know. I was like rubbing my stomach. I have the most exposure.
Oh no!
Oh yes. Oh my. Yeah, I gave it a 9.
Okay.
I owned this soundtrack on CD. I probably still have it. I could probably find it. Some of these songs, Danger Zone is full on. That comes on the radio. You crank the radio, you roll the windows down, and you hope there's not a cop for the next 3 miles.
Yeah,
right. That is,
and you're going real slow if the whole song takes you 3 miles to
you know what I mean. Well, you got to come down off of the speed.
Yeah.
Take My Breath Away. Is a great song.
Yeah. So that was number 1 on the billboards for I think like 5 non-consecutive weeks, but it basically gave Berlin their name.
Yeah. The Top Gun anthem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that comes on again. You immediately know. We've talked about this with some scores where, yeah, the music good. Does it support the emotion of the scene? Sure, but is there anything that you walk out of the theater that sticks with you?
This is one of those.
This movie has those, and there are some failings elsewhere, but for what it is, this just nails it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for me, again, as I have the most surface area within the 80s. So let's
go down the scale.
Let's
Andrew?
go down the scale of surface areas.
I also gave it a 9.
Nice.
Okay.
This was also one of the early CDs that I had available to me that it was just repeat on repeat on repeat. I still listen to a lot of this music today,
mm-hmm.
like just in various workout playlists or,
mm-hmm.
just kind of every day. I definitely have it when I'm working on cars. It is just like quintessential 80s guitar riffs and just like exactly what you expect out of 80s music.
Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned Mighty Wings by Cheap Trick, which they only play it like just little like bits in the film, but then the ending credits has
mm-hmm.
Mighty Wings. And this was one of the films that really had like basically every single piece of music was written for the film. So like they hired Kenny Loggins to make the Danger Zone. Like
mm-hmm.
that wasn't a song that he just had and then they're like, oh, we're going to use it for the film. Like he wrote it for the film.
Mm-hmm. Same thing. Take My Breath Away.
Yeah. Same thing with Cheap Trick. And if you really want a fun time, just go on YouTube and just type in, Kenny Loggins Danger Zone, and you can just watch him in a sweaty room with aviators just staring directly at you while singing Danger Zone.
Yeah.
With obviously movie footage paired over.
But he really liked the intern with the spritzer, so he hired.
Or you can go to the Top Gun theme and watch Steve Stevens play in a massive airplane hangar with a guy on a grand piano, even though there's no piano in the actual song. It's just a synthesizer.
Look, man, it's the 80s, and most music videos were filmed in a factory that only produces sparks. So we're really lucky that we got what we got for those.
Oh no, I mean they're fantastic, and I'll pick them up every once in a while. But yeah, the soundtrack does exactly what you want it to out of a hotshot dogfighting jet plane movie.
Okay.
If there was one thing they did right with this film, it is this.
All right, let's
then Joel is going to bring us all back down.
We're gonna continue the amoeba progression and get the least surface area.
I have the least surface area in the 80s, 3/4 of a year surface area in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I gave the score of 5. So, all right.
It shows.
So, outside of...
Okay, hold on. First, I have a question.
Okay.
This was the first time you've seen Top Gun.
Yeah.
Were you familiar with any of this music prior to seeing this movie?
Danger Zone and Take My Breath Away.
Okay. That's just one of
So, outside of Danger Zone, there were only 4 pieces of music. There was Take My Breath Away, which played in every single scene that was associated with the romance subplot.
Right.
There was one piece that was sad. There was one piece that was exciting. And that was it. And they reused them in every single scene.
So I will say that a lot of the editing for the scores, like in the background, like while the movie was playing, was honestly not that good.
Yeah.
Where they would like have a build up and then just immediately just cut into a completely different
Just go
song.
something else.
Like,
Yeah.
and the audio levels, like there was no fading in, there was no fading out. It was all in your face or it was not there.
On or off.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like you can get away with reusing themes and stuff if you're subtle and you apply, some technical finesse. And none of that happened at all.
It was a $25 million film, or no, $15 million film.
$15 million.
So I mean,
film.
look, there's only so much audio editing that can be done
and
here.
they paid for all this music.
You know what? Volume is one knob, and you just pay the intern that went around spritzing everybody. Just tell him put down the bottle. Go fiddle with this knob. That's what we need you to do this afternoon.
I'm not going to continue my joke after what you just said. We're going to leave it like that.
But I mean, I totally get it if you're like, especially if 80s music is really not your thing.
Oh no, like I was like, none of this music is in the slightest engaging.
Yeah,
so that's not surprising.
Yeah, that is totally okay. You can be wrong.
All right, there we go. 4 points of wrong. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thereabout.
Well, okay. I actually had it as a 10, had it at a 10.
Oh.
Okay, I never gave it a 10. I debated between 8 and 9 because some of the other stuff that's outside of just the music that we know, it's not that great.
Yeah.
So I was kind of, but it's just too much of an icon.
It is very iconic.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that you were not part of the surface area.
Yeah. The amoeba only has so much.
My surface area was small, and so was my score.
Okay, so moving forward into the plot, and I think I'm going to play cleanup on this one because
I'll go.
Stuff that gets jumped over, I'm just going to sweep up. So yeah, let's let Andrew go first.
I gave plot a 3.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
As much as I love this film, there's the more you watch it, it's kind of like, it's one of those images whenever you see where you're just like, oh, this is fine. And then the more you actually look at the image, the more is wrong with it.
So an AI wrote this film.
We're like, woo, there's just like the more, because I've seen this movie a lot, like probably as much as like at least pick out any individual of the original trilogy Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like I've seen this movie a lot. We had a VHS at my house. It was one of the only movies that my parents allowed me to watch when I was younger. despite the content of a very mild sex scene and a death of a character. But jets are cool because that's how it works, right? And it's the more I watch this, I'm just like, one, the romance just was completely not needed at all, and unfortunately, just very cringy. Just because Pete Mitchell, Maverick, he just is so incessant and just hounds Charlie until he just gets what he wants, which is unfortunate. On top of that, there's just a lot of military protocol that just doesn't really exist in this. So like, if he would have done basically anything that he did before he even got to Top Gun the school, like he probably wouldn't have even been able to fly again.
Yeah.
Just because he would have been court-martialed or for whatever reason, despite his noble gesture to try and go bring Cougar back in, like he doesn't have any fuel. That is a $38 million plane that he is flying, that he is basically commissioned to do by the Navy.
Plus all the money in his and Goose's training.
Yeah.
And he also caused the whole scenario. The only reason Cougar cracks up is because his wingman is absolutely unreliable and just isn't there.
And just doing whatever, he's showboating.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, if that happened in real life, I would imagine that he just wouldn't be in the Navy anymore. Or he would not be flying planes.
They'll say, once you sign the contract, the military owns you.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't have the privilege of being a pilot.
Yeah. I mean, like I could go on and on and on, but mostly it's just like there's just so much that is just wrong about the film as far as like how military procedure goes. And I don't like, in just me being on the outside, I've never been in the military. I only know a handful of people that have. I still know it's wrong.
Yeah.
And like if I know it's wrong, it's probably really wrong.
Joel?
So I am going to be a little more generous. I gave it a 5. And this most of this comes out of the romance subplot, which one did not tie into anything else. So it was completely unnecessary, and 2 didn't make any sense from the onset anyway. Because like this woman, Charlie, sees guys like him, like dozens of them every year.
Yeah.
There is no reason why this one would
be any different.
Would make her compromise her career, right? Like there's just, it doesn't make any sense. And and then for the rest of it, it was mostly had to do with the climax,
right?
Where, they specifically ship out a pilot to a situation that could result in an international incident who has a known unresolved psychological trauma issue around flying an airplane in a combat situation.
When there's so many other pilots that are also
right there
standing next to him
at that party.
He's the second best pilot in the program, though.
Yeah. And then and then the minute that he gets put into the air to go be fulfill his job and be the backup for Iceman, because Iceman's wingman has already been shot down. The carrier just magically loses the ability to launch any more planes.
I mean, moving parts do have a lifespan.
Sure, but every single one of them broke at that moment. when they already provided a framework, they said the entire engagement is going to be over in 2 minutes. Right? They could just say it'll take 5 minutes for the next plane to be prepped and ready to get over there because there's way more enemy planes over there than we anticipated.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to take not a long time, 5 minutes, but that is still way more time than we actually have. So like they didn't have to make it a coincidence and still could have had the same result. And that's just, it makes me sad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Continue.
But to say something nice, right? Because I did give it a 5. There's some good stuff in there, at least that I saw. And that is that the 3 key relationships in the film between Maverick and Goose, Maverick and Iceman, and then Maverick and Viper, the primary instructor that's kind of over the program. All of those were kind of the key touchstones in the character's journey.
Right.
And each one of those relationships I felt was written very well and was very believable. Even if Iceman and Viper didn't get quite enough character writing and characterization necessarily for the actors to really sink their teeth into.
And Val Kilmer's got some chompers, man.
Yeah. But the but how they connected and related to Maverick's character, I thought was good, right? Like and so the story itself, centered around those three relationships, has a solid core going for it.
Yeah. Fair. Steven?
Oh boy. I strongly considered punching through the barrier and setting a record. And I couldn't do it quite that much, so I gave it a 3. This was brutal as an adult to watch. One, again, the most irrelevant love story possibly in the history of cinema. You know, most movies, they don't necessarily have a great love story where it's like, well, this doesn't feel earned, or I can't see how they would get together, but it at least has some
like plot relevance,
major plot point or reason for existing. And this one just
and they closed the film on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's the final close bracket, which is supposed to be the important one. And it's just okay. Well, that's a thing that also happens.
It's supposed to be the substitute for his relationship that he's lost with Goose, or the relationship he never had with his father. But he's going to get another RIO. Yeah. Right? Like Rio, whatever. I don't care. WSO, Wizzo. I don't care. He's going to get another one of those. You know, he's not going to replace his dad, but he's trying to be a father figure now because he wants to be an instructor, right? And the love story is so bad. It's just so bad. Now let's have some fun, shall we? So,
I was going to leave a lot of the combat stuff to you.
Well,
since you're more versed,
we'll kick off with Joel's comment about the catapults, right?
You have more surface area.
They even say, yes. They even say, well, catapults 3 and 4 are down. Well, from an outside perspective, that implies that catapults 1 and 2 exist. And I would just like to go ahead and confirm, yes, the Enterprise has 4 catapults. What the heck? Just admit, hey, the next pilot is at Ready 15.
Yeah.
Which they even use the term Ready 5, which is a real term. And is what is really happening in that Maverick is in the cockpit. The plane is on the catapult ready to go. That is what Ready 5 is. Like, that is an accurate term. They did it correctly. That's about where it ends. Because, I mean, at Miramar, we get the whole, the hard deck is 10,000. Right?
Meaning that if a hard deck is the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So for training purposes, a hard deck at 10,000 means if you go below 10,000 feet, you're considered you crashed. Because it's meant to be, hey, our idiot pilots that we're training, if they just keep doing this, they will just run into the ground, and we need a way to prevent that, right?
Yeah.
None of that footage is shot above 10,000 feet.
No,
I don't think any of it's shot above 3,000 feet, honestly. It's really low down, and it's really unbelievable. And then they make it a big plot point. Like, it's a big confrontation. And just, I get that you got the term, and y'all are like, yeah, we're going to make that the fighting. Well, then your footage needs to back it up.
Say the hard deck is 1,000 feet.
Something. Just pick a different number, anything, or give me a different reason for the oy vey. The actual climax combat is just beyond dumb. So I mentioned earlier in the episode, right? You talked about the short range of the encounter.
Yeah.
I let that one slide because of the rules of engagement at play, right?
So don't fire until fired upon.
Right. So the only reason that would happen is you have these close passes, right? You have this antagonization.
That's fair.
Because just being honest, the F-14 was built to carry the AIM-54, and the AIM-54 was built to go on the F-14, and it has an operational range of 120 miles.
Yep.
The missile is meant to be fired when they never see you. The radar sees you, you lock, you pull the trigger, you go do something. You're supposed to be able to engage multiple targets. They carry 6 of these things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's an air superiority fire.
Right. What they're actually using is most likely Sidewinders.
There's a shot where it fires an AIM, and then the next shot is a Sidewinder. So
technically, those are both AIMs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you have the AIM-7 would be a Sparrow, the AIM-9 is a Sidewinder, and then the AIM-120 is the AMRAAM, which is the next longest range missile that isn't the AIM-54, the Phoenix.
Gotcha.
They're basically all called AIMs.
Those were all numbers and
I think it's Air Intercept Missile or something like that. But either way, They are all missiles that are used. Like where else can I begin? Like there's no surprise. We got 2 contacts. Oh, it's 4. Now it's 5. You entered what is considered a hot zone. You're launching fighters as patrol. Any carrier group has
an AWAC.
An AWACS. What's really called an AEW&C. Just it's AWACS is the easier term to say. But they have a big radar dome carrying plane that's orbiting that can see anything for hundreds of miles. There is no mystery here.
Well, and there should be no possible way that the MiG should get behind in like a firing position.
No, you should always know where they are. Yeah. You should basically be put airborne with the knowledge of, hey, there's contacts 150 miles out or whatever the range is. And Hollywood and Iceman shoot AIM-54s and shoot MiGs down, or they just don't because they have to force a close combat because of rules of engagement.
Yeah.
But I mean, there should be more fighters in the air. Any carrier
there should be 2. There should be 2 squads basically. So
minimum. Any carrier that's in a war zone or any kind of zone of threat, quote unquote, has combat air patrol going. They have planes in the air at all times because the easiest way to respond to a threat is you already have planes in the air.
Yep.
So they just do it by routine. It's just part of the day, unless the weather is bad or whatever. It's just part of the daily operation, basically. If the Enterprise is sitting off the coast of California, it's not running cap. Okay. But like they're going into a hot zone. It's an acknowledged hot zone. The whole reason they're putting planes in the air
is a hot zone.
It's a hot zone. So I had some fun because the supposed enemies. So if you're not aware, the supposed enemies were supposed to be the North Koreans.
Oh, really?
That was the plan. But again, it's a propaganda movie. And at the time, the government was trying to normalize relations. And they basically said, hey, you can't do that. That's why it's black with the red star.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. So then they had to pivot. So they just don't tell you who these people are.
Yeah. Yep.
It's presumed Soviets because it's MiGs. But they're in the Indian Ocean.
Yep.
The Soviets just aren't there. Then they throw out this. I don't know why they chose.
Something about the Middle East.
Well, the plot line, and this is where it just gets hilarious. The plot line is the Enterprise was in the Mediterranean supporting operations over Libya, which is a real thing that happened. And there were actually aerial encounters that occurred there, including F-14s shooting down MiGs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's hot-footed to the Indian Ocean to help support this scenario. And now they fight the same planes that are operating. The whole threat here is the Exocet missile. So once they get within 100 miles of the stranded ship, they can fire these missiles. And they're really, really good anti-ship missiles. That was one of the few successes the Argentinian military had in the Falklands War against the British was Exocet missiles.
Yeah.
The only problem is the only countries that operated MiGs and also operated the Exocet missile that are in this realm of the world is India or Indonesia. So we just had a whole movie where the climax is we're fighting the Indian or Indonesian Air Force. What? There had to be a better, just let it still be the Libyans. Nobody was trying to normalize relations with Gaddafi at the time. Just keep it in the Mediterranean.
And I'll also add two notes here. I know I mentioned it earlier, but the MiG-28 doesn't actually exist.
Right.
It is they're basically odd numbers for real ones. So there's a MiG-27 and a MiG-29.
Mm-hmm.
MiG-28 just didn't exist. So they just made it up. And they are F-5s in the film. They're just painted black with a red star.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's a couple scenes where the Rio is looking at some kind of radar screen, but it's not actually the radar screen that is in an F-14, because it was the F-14 only has a conical radar that just goes front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it doesn't do like a full 300.
They had the whole 360.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been bashing. There's so many in action. I could go on for a long time.
This would be a 2-hour podcast of just Stephen mad about planes.
I'm going to extend the olive branch just because it's kind of funny because, this movie made the F-14 what it is, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's an iconic.
I think you'll find aviation engineers made the F-14 what it is.
Oh, you hush.
It made it popular.
Right. The American conception, the idea of what is, military might, the F-14 just right up on the top of the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the bit in training that that kills Goose, right, where Iceman breaks off, they hit the jet wash, and they have the flameouts, right?
Yep.
That is the most accurate thing they do. So the F-14A, the initial version of it, had terrible, terrible engines.
Yep.
And actually caused something like 40 plus crashes, including killing the first female fighter pilot aviator for the Navy.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Because the engine literally stalls itself. Okay. So it's such a poor design that, especially at low speeds, like when you're trying to land on a carrier, if
perhaps in case that situation would ever
these things
arise.
that it's supposed to do, if you at the low speeds, if you let the nose pitch to, or not pitch, but yaw, I'm never good with these terms, but basically if you turn too hard to the left or too hard to the right, the nose blocks the air intake of the other engine and it flames out. And now because you have two engines and only one is running, you now have asymmetric thrust and you put yourself into a spin.
Yeah. In the direction you were already going.
Yeah. You're just committed at that point. So yeah, it was a really bad. I guess I shouldn't say it's a bad design. It's just the piece of engineering they put behind it was not good, and it was corrected. It just took a really long time, and the pilots just kind of compensated for the fact that you can't swing your nose too far too quickly at low speeds, and you also can't go into or enter high angle of attack. So basically, where your nose is pointed up. So this is really visual, and it's going to help you all and nobody else. If a plane is moving straight forward flying level and then you pitch the nose up, right, you don't immediately go straight up at that angle. You continue forward. Your momentum continues forward. So whatever the difference is between that momentum and your nose is the angle of attack.
Which is how he does the
Cobra maneuver.
Yeah, the Cobra maneuver. Hit the brakes, I'll fly right by.
Which is exactly what causes the engines to flame out.
Well, so that is technically an intentional stall, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you do risk the fact that those engines don't
actually
come back for you.
It is a very risky maneuver in an F-14.
Right. And I mean, that's, again, Maverick, right? It's one of the things they harp on. But yeah, no, the actual stall and spin and failed ejection is the most accurate thing they do in the movies.
Oh, yeah. Especially like what you were saying earlier about how if you have forward momentum and you pop the canopy for ejection, then the canopy just flies off behind you.
Physics saves you,
Right. But if you're more or less in a stop other than just having your spin, then the canopy is just right there.
And
so,
you can hit it.
Yeah. And so like ejecting into the canopy as happened in the film is a real danger.
Right. And they actually had, because again, the F-14 had issues where it would stall and put itself into a spin. They had people who ejected and they brushed the canopy. So like that was a real risk that was going on for the actual real aviators.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to the entertainment, which we can give our scores. I think we've kind of already talked a little bit. We can talk a little bit more, but we should talk about what we think and what we hope and our dreams and thoughts are going to be with the new film, Top Gun Maverick.
Yes. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
I talked a lot. So.
I gave entertainment a 9.
Okay,
I have seen this film so many times, and despite all of the terrible plot elements and just reused footage, I don't care. I'm still a 10-year-old at heart, and I love seeing F-14s fly, and especially to Danger Zone and get electric guitars. I mean, you can't. I mean. It's still just one of my favorite films, despite just it being terrible.
All right, fair enough. Joel?
Well, I gave it a 6.
Okay.
It's decently entertaining. I came away from it not really wanting to see it again. And I think a lot of that, comes from a miss in if they had absolutely nailed the fighter combat visuals consistently throughout the film, then it would be a much more enticing film to come back to just to feel that adrenaline rush again. You know what I mean? But that just wasn't there for a large swath of the film. And so it doesn't have that nice, pretty face to paint over the shortcomings.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
Steven?
Okay, so I'm going to, there's a preface here, all right? because we talked about my surface area
Yeah.
on this. So as a kid, my family went to DC for a long road trip, and on the way back, because my dad loves Top Gun,
Mm-hmm.
we stopped by Norfolk, where carriers dock.
Yeah.
And so for anyone in the post 9/11 world, this is very, very pre-9. This is before the Gulf War. So we basically stood at a chain link fence and stared at the Teddy Roosevelt carrier. And while we stood there, an ensign walked by and was like, "Do y'all want to see it?"
Oh gosh.
Oh, wow.
I'm so jealous.
He took us through the entire carrier, and literally it was just, hey, there's some places where you can't take photos. My sister and I sat in the captain's chair
What?
on the
Oh my
bridge. Yeah.
gosh.
So like when they play Highway to the Danger Zone, and this thing it's a road. It looks like a road. It is so ridiculously long. We were on the flight deck while it's just, at dock, and they brought F-14s up the elevator,
Oh man.
and the dude boosted me up. I got to sit in the cockpit as like a 7. Like I peaked when I was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go get this out of the way. So I'm just saying all of that for how much surface area I have in this. I gave it a 6.
That's so unfair.
It's tough, and I watched this a lot when I was a kid, and as an adult, it's just hard to watch. The love story is just, it's really, really difficult to watch as an adult, and it's just not good. They just didn't, if like Joel said, if they had really sold out and nailed down all the aerial footage, and some of the shots, I give them credit for because y'all were kind of talking like, oh, if the technology existed where they could show more of the fight, and I kind of appreciate that it's kind of limited, because part of the danger is just, well, the pilots are trying to locate the MiG and where is it, and like that actually heightens the tension, right? So I don't need that. I just don't need to see the same acrobatic maneuver twice for no reason.
Yeah.
And just stuff like that just kind of kills it.
No, and I totally get it. That is absolutely acceptable. It is not a good film.
Yeah. I mean, we've made this reference, I think, in the past. There are some scenes that, when I want them, YouTube is there.
Yep.
And I can slap on, Danger Zone on the highway, and that's all I really need out of it. So
yeah. Okay, so Top Gun Maverick is already out by the time the listener, hears this.
Not by the time we are speaking these words, however.
Yes, so we are recording this right now, before the movie has come out.
Now, not then now when you're listening to us.
Correct. So what are your thoughts, hopes, dreams, and things?
Okay, I'll go ahead and take this.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. My main hope for the film is leaning into the effects, right? And we've seen what can be done with CGI to make grand battles with the Avengers series and all this kind of stuff. Like it's commonplace.
Yeah.
Right. At this point in big budget blockbuster films. And so something like jet fighter combat has a lot of very specific, stylized sort of spectacle that you can utilize current effects technology to really maximize.
Yeah.
And that's really the biggest thing that I hope to get out of this. From the trailer, it's clear that they're going to retread on
the training aspect.
Right. I mean, he's going to be a trainer, and there's going to be these other pilots, and they're like, oh, who's going to train us? And, oh no, it's Maverick. Oh man, he's so cool. And but one of the people is going to be Goose's kid, right?
Yeah.
And because there's a thing in the trailer of like, yeah, well, my father trusted you, and I'm not going to make the same mistake. And
and you're not selling this right now. just want to go ahead and
well, I don't think the trailer sold it. So I have some qualms. Some worries perhaps about them nostalgia baiting perhaps, and not writing a fresh story, but instead trying to retread as much as possible in order to do what they think the audience wants and just give them the same thing again. And so I hope to avoid that as much as possible while taking advantage of modern
filming
effects.
techniques and effects. Yeah. Steven?
I mean, let's get a long, cohesive sequence of aerial combat that doesn't reuse footage. And I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd definitely be a step up.
Yeah. I haven't actually watched the trailer. I think, Andrew, you sent us something that was kind of a little bit of a behind the scenes blurb. And, the shots from that look great. So I know on the show when we did Mandalorian. No, I'm sorry, Book of Boba Fett.
Oh God, don't say
Actually, that was not an intentional slip either. But the bits where he was, flying felt very Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the behind the scenes stuff that you showed, it felt like they were kind of working some of the same camera angles of like the big bubble cockpit, and they're looking up at the pilot, and you do the big roll.
Yeah.
Give me a lot of that, please. We're going to bring back Goose's kid, and he's there to, redeem his father, or to prove that Maverick's a hack.
There's nothing to redeem.
Whatever.
Goose was awesome.
He was, but he did die. So,
if you had really thought them, he wouldn't have died.
He would have shattered the canopy, not the other way around. But I don't know. Maybe they can find some emotional weight there. Hopefully, there's more depth or interest there. Maybe we just won't have a love story. That'd be pretty sweet. But mostly, just get the fighters up. It'd be interesting to kind of see Top Gun with F-18s.
Yeah,
because Top Gun just means F-14s to most people. They do have some clips where he's flying, the relic, the antique.
Yeah.
Which I guess, I don't know how they're going to build that in, but whatever, we'll see. So yeah, I just get the planes up. Let's fly them around. Give me some good footage. And that's a killer soundtrack. And just don't put a love story, please.
Yeah. So the thing that I'm scared the most for is the soundtrack, because I feel that is basically the only thing that's really holding this film up.
Okay.
Besides just some of the general for the original Top Gun, just some of the aerial photography or footage, but the new one, we are not in the 80s anymore.
Yep.
And I worry that either they're going to use 80s songs and it is going to feel
it's going to feel so out of place.
It's going to feel really
out of place, or they're going to just use some generic kind of just like any other action movie soundtrack, which is also worrisome. So I really hope that there's something that they're bringing back in that'll make it interesting.
Please, someone who has a spark of genius, do this thing.
Yes,
kind
seriously.
of thing.
They've had years to marinate on this at this point.
Now, I will touch on the fact that, because I know you said CGI effects and everything like this for technology, for effects.
And really, I'm not talking about constructing entire sequences out of CGI. It's just I want to be able to see the arc of a missile from the viewpoint of the camera under the wing of the attacking plane, see the missile arc out with the vapor trail,
make the curve,
make the curve, impact the target plane, watch the target plane explode and crumble without shifting camera POV, right? That's the kind of thing where you can get most of that as raw footage. And then you just spruce it up. You put a little lipstick and makeup on there, and you're good to go.
So you have the shot where the missile hits and the plane becomes, a debris cloud, and then the camera stays on the underside, and the F-14 or the F-18 banks, and you fly past the debris cloud. Come on.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about just Tom Cruise in general is he likes to do all of his own stunts. He unfortunately he couldn't do his own stunts back in the original Top Gun. He did do them in this one.
So he got a pilot certification for jet fighters?
He's had a pilot certification.
Yes. So he him and the general cast that are the pilots are actually in the jets.
Wow.
Flying. Now the F-18 Super Hornet is a two-seater.
Well, there are two-seater versions.
We are not. I'm not sure if they're the ones that are directly controlling the planes.
Right.
But they are definitely in the cockpits, doing the G's, doing all these kind of maneuvers and everything like that in the new film.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt they let them fly them. But the concept that they're in the cockpit and I
know that Tom Cruise actually flew.
He's flown jets.
Directly flew one. Now the other characters maybe not. I don't know.
Right. But the concept, what you had in the behind the scenes, again, that you shared with us, where the actor has to actually kind of set the cameras in the cockpit and it's kind of their own director. I think that's going to be really interesting because it's all about again, Cruise is willing to sell it. He has kind of the same mentality as Jackie Chan of we're going to do it again until I think it's perfect. Mission Impossible, he was on the side of the plane for 8 takes or whatever.
Yeah.
He's willing to do it over and over. So I imagine that's definitely going to help his side of things. I'm not sure. I'm curious to see if that mentality is kind of, propagated throughout the pool or if they're just getting their shots and getting it done, kind of thing. We'll find out.
Yeah. So I hope that they really take a lot of those kind of liberties and add in, clearly like the shots that I've seen just from the trailers and everything do look substantially better than what we got in the original Top Gun, mainly just because of technology, and you can compact a camera a whole lot more and you can fit 20 of them on a plane at any given time
and not really impact its air. I mean, I still can't imagine the concept of this massive camera that had to be strapped to an F-14 and what it could do to the aerodynamics.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of that. But yeah, I really worry for the music of the film, because that is definitely one of the most iconic parts of Top Gun in general. And it's definitely one of those things where it probably you couldn't make the same film now and it would fly, just because you don't have that 80s powerhouse soundtrack behind it.
Right. And they're probably not, like, you've brought this up now, it's a concern, because they're not going to go out and presumably create all new music for this. Well, then if you slap 80s in, it's going to be weird for like F-18s and young modern actors zipping around. Well, then you just pick up whatever you find from modern music. Well, that's going to be kind of weird just to jam that into a Top Gun. Yeah, that...
I don't know.
There's risk.
It is worrisome.
Yeah, again, it was the highlight of the film for the most part, so there's a lot of room to come down. There's not necessarily a lot of room to improve. So definitely a concern, but at this point, we will have seen and you will know. But that is all the time we have for this episode. So until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And as always, every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.